being here this morning. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Texting and Ideas to Recruit High School Students in Effective Ways. My name is Stacy Miller. I'm an academic advisor at Truckee Meadows Community College, and I will be your moderator today. Please join me in welcoming Yuli Chavez, our program director for Recruitment and Access Center here at Truckee Meadows Community College, and she will be our presenter today. As your moderator, I would like to remind you to please stay muted during the session to help us ensure the quality of the meeting for our audio. And also that this meeting is going to be recorded and sent along to you with the presentation slides after today's event. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. We will make sure that the presenter sees those, and I will make sure that you have a 5-minute warning as we get closer to the end of the presentation. So welcome, Yuli, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to choose this presentation. I certainly hope that over the next 45 minutes, I can provide you some best practices and some ideas to reach out to students primarily through text message, but I also have a couple of other ideas that I hope that you can borrow and make your own and find useful. I want to start by asking what department you represent. So if you could please take a minute to put the name of your department in the chat box, that would be super helpful. I'd love to see what programs, departments, offices you represent, please. Yay, CSN recruitment is here. UNLV Upward Bound, wonderful. Upward Bound, UNLV. Gear Up, yay, go Gear Up. Admissions and Records at NSC. WNC is here as well. And GVC, great. Nevada Promise GVC, I think we have a really good representation of colleges across the state. So hopefully, again, at the end of this presentation, you'll all walk away with something that you can use. I'm a big believer that, time is precious, and we want to make sure that we are walking away with tangible, real-time ideas that I hope are useful to you and your students. So in my current role as program director at TMCC, I oversee activities for prospective students. And, in the time of COVID, we've had to do things very, very differently. And I'm sure that you're all familiar with this. So my presentation today is going to focus primarily on using texting for outreach and recruitment. I should tell you that this is not a sales presentation. I do have a provider that I use for texting, but by no means am I going to try to promote them or anyone else. It's just rather a tool that I use, and it's quite efficient. So I hope that you find it useful as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. 1 second, please. Stacy, can you just shake your head for me if you can see my screen, please? Perfect. Let's go ahead and start probably at the beginning. Here we go. So I wanted to start our presentation just with an overview of who the students are that tend to gravitate towards texting. So texting is becoming the most efficient and preferred communication method, especially for current high school students. And in my experience, adults as well. Texting is convenient, it's fast, it's easy. It's also quite affordable, and I'll go over some of that later. But the current students that we work with, one of our primary goals in recruitment is to try to meet students where they are. And here's how they typically prefer to receive college material. The main one, college recruiters coming to their high school, and this is the one that, we're really hurting this year. At least up here in the north, we haven't had any access to visit high schools or do any community events. So given their preference for getting their college information directly from their high school or from their counselor, we just had to come up with something different to get in front of the students as much as possible to be able to provide information. The current students, Gen Zers, as you can see here, I've provided you a breakdown of what their preferred methods of communication are. So that's always good to see what they're interested in. And the one that really, really stands out for me is this 12% influencer. And for those of you who may not be familiar with what this means, is that this is the generation that is really guided by social media and social media superstardom. So you'll see, this very young people who have just huge following in TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. So that particular career aspiration is pretty significant. So it is something that we should, pay attention to, because once again, it does tell us where students prefer to get their information from. Who are the main influencers in students' lives? Parents and guardians continue to be at the very top. So once again, anything that we do with recruitment and outreach, we have to keep parents and families in mind, given that students are still reporting that their main influencers, the folks that they, hear the best college advice from, are still family members and parents or guardians. Involving the family and parents in your recruitment and outreach efforts is absolutely critical. Friends, teachers, and high school counselors are the next group of people that students report as being highly influential in their decision-making process. And then as far as where students are getting their information from, when we specifically take a look at the virtual space, you can see that medium platforms like Facebook are clearly, not as significant as Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. The one that's growing and the one that I encourage you to keep an eye on is TikTok, because it has just absolutely blown up over the last couple of years. And everything that I've seen tells me that TikTok is going to take over Instagram and Snapchat within the next 2 years. So once again, when we talk about how do we get information in front of students, you got to keep your eye on TikTok. That's the one that I think we're going to see the most significant changes from over the next couple of years. When we talk to students and try to decide what type of college information they want to receive, it's also important to note that they are very interested in getting information about admissions requirements, dates and deadlines, information about cost, degrees, which I think I really appreciate seeing this information, because sometimes I wonder, like, hey, are we making sure that the content that we have on our flyers, on our website, on our presentations, is that really the type of information that students want to see? And what we see is that, yes, in fact, students are still really interested in getting information about admissions requirements, what types of degrees and programs your college offers. The reminders about dates and deadlines are really effective as well. And that's where texting comes in and can really make a significant impact on your ability to reach out to students effectively, efficiently, and at a relatively low cost. Messaging across the board has shown to increase enrollment goals at many colleges and universities across the United States. And I know that it's not new, right? We've been using texting for a long time, but what is new is the creation of this, companies or mega platforms that specialize in higher education texting, and specifically can provide us, best practices, tips, and outreach suggestions for reaching out to the prospective students that we want to enroll at our college, and what are the best practices in being able to accomplish that goal through texting. So before we start, I just, once again, on the chat box, I'm really interested to know how many of you already use texting. So if you could just put the name of your college if you use texting, that would be wonderful, please, on the chat. GBC is using texting, perfect. CSN, UNLV, okay. Remind, yeah, we've used Remind as well. Okay, cool. So let me, just 1 second, please. Okay. So how does texting support enrollment efforts? So primarily, we engage students early, and I'll tell you that that's probably the most beneficial outcome of texting, is our ability to very quickly and very efficiently send out reminders that helps move students from one enrollment steps to the next. It's also fast. We can, it'll take us a whole week and a full team to make 900 phone calls, but I can send 900 emails in 2 hours. So the effort and staff time is really another benefit of why texting is a great platform to communicate with prospective students. I think the engagement in texting is definitely, for us at least, a lot higher than it is when we make phone calls, for example. So on a good day when we're making phone call efforts, we can get a hold of maybe 15, 20% of students. We end up leaving a bunch of voicemails. Texting, it's almost every student that we text will see your message. So that is a pretty significant increase in terms of our students reading or receiving the information that we want them to receive. So a couple of things that I wanted to talk about before we move on, because this is FERPA is always a concern when it comes to anything related to student records. And when it comes to texting, especially mass texting, we're always using students' information. So there are some, tips that I want to share with you. So primarily, the FERPA tells us that the student information is private, and we are the stewards of that information and always need to do our best to make sure that that information is protected. When it comes to prospective students, FERPA does not apply to prospective students. So if you are primarily using your texting campaign to communicate with your prospective students, then you should be fine to proceed. When it comes to current students, rule of thumb is treat texting data as you would treat any other type of student data. So it should not be any different than, say, sending an email or any other method that you use to communicate with students. So as long as you're being good stewards of student data, texting should be a platform that you're able to use in higher education to get a hold of your students. Again, you always want to be careful, especially if you're personalizing your text messages. We can never know who's on the other side of the line. So we're always very cautious about the information that we provide. And also, because we are working with prospective students, and many of them, if not most of them, are high school students, we do have to be aware that there are occasions when we receive what I consider concerning messages from students. So for example, I've had a couple of situations where students reply back and they'll give me information such as, hey, I'm sorry I didn't reply earlier. I was just, I'm being bullied at school and I just didn't have time, right? So now that's very concerning to me. So now I feel that it's our responsibility to make sure that we follow up with that student, with that high school counselor, to make sure that that student receives any assistance or support that he or she may need. So even though my peer recruiters do a lot of our work when it comes to texting, I'm very careful when it comes to training so that they know that if we receive any messages that have concerning content, I want to know right away so that I can take any action steps that are necessary. So just always be aware that could happen. The second recommendation that I have for you is to be very careful about the goals of your text messages. We know that students don't read email, right? And the reason they don't read email is because they get so many of them. And I think at some point students just see email as spam and they don't pay attention. We want to be careful with text messaging to make sure that it doesn't become the next form of email and that students start ignoring or reminders as well. So just because you can send a text doesn't mean that you should. And I'll go over that in detail in just a minute. Okay. Here's what students want to see on text messages. They want to see deadline reminders, updates from admissions counselors, updates from advisors. They love that information. They respond really well to it. That's the type of information that they receive and they want to receive more of. What they do not want to get are promotions. So avoid using text to, for example, promote your latest discounts at your bookstores. Links to social media posts, they don't like those. And then finally, links to your website. And as a matter of fact, many cell phone carriers automatically block messages if they contain a website link. So if you want to guarantee that your students are getting your text message, you'll want to avoid sending links, at least in your initial email. So be careful about that, because you do not want those cell phone companies to block your number and then the student never receives any emails from you. One that I don't have in here, but I do want to caution you about is reminders about events. Now, event reminders may be useful for outreach purposes if you have your spring open house or your college info days, or those activities that are relevant to students. Those ones, students really respond well to those. But you want to be careful that you're not sending event reminders every day, right? So if you start sending event reminders every day, once again, you're going to spam them and they'll block you and they will not get any more information from you. So ask yourself, is the event that you're promoting directly related to the goal of your texting program? So for me, the goal of our texting program is to increase enrollment. So if the event is not related to increasing enrollment, then we're probably not going to use text messaging to remind students. Again, your goals may be very different. So just again, I would ensure that you have a really careful understanding of what you're trying to accomplish if you're using texting for outreach or for retention or for any other type of programming. So plan ahead and govern wisely. This is really important. When you're setting up a text message, and again, those of you that already have it, hopefully that's something that you're already doing. And I'd love to hear from you if you have any advice. But how you set up your text campaigns and your text policies on campus is going to be really important, because again, the ultimate goal here is that we do not want students to flag us as spam and then stop receiving or reading our text messages. Right now, most of the students will read the text messages that we get. We definitely want to keep it that way. Even if they don't take any further action, I know that at least they're getting the information and that they're reading the text message, and hopefully they have contact information when they do need help. But be careful about who has access to texting at your college. Once again, I would go back to what's the purpose of texting? Is it to increase enrollment? Is it to increase retention? Is it to promote student life? What are you trying to accomplish? And the folks that have access to texting should be the folks that are going to directly impact your ability to meet your goal. Students do not want to receive multiple messages from different departments in a short time frame. Again, they'll block you and they'll never see anything from you again. I really encourage you to think about the possibility of creating what we call a texting committee. And I know we do not need another meeting. I get it. We're all over Zoom meetings, done. So we do everything through email. And the texting committee for our college is very simple. Anytime that we're doing a message campaign that's like over 100 students, we put an email together and it goes to this group of people on the committee. And the group of people are usually folks at the front desks where they see a lot of foot traffic or phone call traffic. So the Welcome Center, for example, they need to be aware that I'm about to send a text message to 2,000 prospective students to invite them to my info night tomorrow. Because now they know if they get phone calls, if they get students just coming by or emailing them about the event, they know how to help those students. So people who are at those front lines that may get phone calls or need to know what types of informations are going out to students, those are the people that I recommend that you get on your texting committee. And by creating this, texting committee, you hold yourselves accountable and can give us, each other suggestions. And there's always, a second pair of eyes who can take a look at your text message to avoid grammar errors or make suggestions, etc. So that's something that we do, and it works fairly well for us. Again, students want to hear from admissions, financial aid, student success programs, controllers, cashiers, something really interesting. And some of you may not like me for this, I'm sorry. But we usually do not recommend that folks from student life utilize text messaging to promote events, just because, again, clubs and orgs have events, hopefully soon they'll have events like every day. You want to be very careful that your messages don't become too repetitive in a way that students will block you and they'll never see anything from you again. And I'm sorry, I'm saying that like a bunch of times, but it's really, really important. Once the student blocks you, they're done. They'll never get any information from you again. So we definitely want to prevent that. The goal for us is enrollment stability. We need to make sure that our messages count. Okay, so I have an activity for you. And so I'm going to ask you to pretty please work on a text message for me. And your text message, your goal is to craft a text message to encourage prospective students to register for fall classes. So I'm really curious to know what you'll come up with. So I'm going to give us like, let's do 3 minutes for you to craft this text message. And when you are done, I'll ask that you please put it in the chat box so that we can all see it. No right or wrong. I'm really curious to see what you all come up with. And then after this activity, what I have for you are some best practices on how to craft a successful or a good text message. So let's see how many of us are already working on that. So I'm going to actually stop sharing so I can see the text. So take just a couple of minutes, please, to see details. Yes, absolutely. So we are crafting a text message to your audience is prospective students, and your goal is to get them to register for fall. So you are sending a text message to prospective students to remind them to register for fall. Let's see what you can come up with. It's going to give it like 2 minutes. Awkward silence. We'll come back. Thank you, GBC. So I'm going to read GBC's message here. And they are saying, ooh, we got a couple more. So I'm just going to read GBC's first. Fall 2021 registration is open. Register through My GBC Student Center or call for help or to schedule an advising appointment. Hello, future Tigers. Hope you are well. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Registration deadline is July 1st. If you need assistance, we're always here. Good morning, future Rebels. You don't want to miss out. You don't want to miss what we have coming your way this fall. Click here to take a look. What would you like to accomplish? What passions do you have? Where do you want to see yourself in just 2 years? Start the conversation with one of our CSN recruiters today. Fabulous. Thank you so much for participating. So I'm going to go ahead and give you some best practices that we utilize and hope that you find them useful. Maybe if. Okay, here we go. So advice number 1, personalize your text messages. So what we always recommend is if you have contact information, which most of the time we do when we set up mass text messages, is that we want to personalize them. And we usually do that by using the student's first name. So in the example that I have here is important information for your visit to PC tomorrow at 10 a.m. And as you can see in the second one, we are saying, hey, Julie, my name is Jamie, and I'm the campus visit coordinator at PC. Now, this is important because the student, especially the student, doesn't know who you are. So if they just get a random text message, from someone that they don't know, they are not likely to pay attention. You use their first name and you introduce yourself. Especially you want to introduce the name of your college so they know it's not just spam or someone trying to sell them something. So that personalization is going to make a big difference in terms of getting their attention and getting them to actually see your text message. So to the best of your ability, we always recommend personalize your messages. 2, be careful with your tone. There is a tone of email and students can sense it. So for us, it's always a nice balance between being, a professional, very technical, language versus being too friendly. So at the college level, we always want to be right in the middle, right? We do not want to use technical jargon that they don't understand, but we're also not their friends. So we want to make sure that, our texts are, not using a lot of emojis or lingo that students may or may not understand. Again, because some of your messages will go out to adults and non-traditional students who may not be as familiar with like some of the lingo that some of the high school age students are using. So we always use, complete sentences and try to spell out abbreviations that they won't understand. And then always, again, keep in mind that the personalization really, really helps. If you cannot think of a great reason to send your text message, you probably shouldn't send it. So once again, before you hit that send, make sure that you have a really good understanding of what the text message will do for the goals of your department. Don't do it just because you haven't sent a text message in a while and you want to show good numbers when you report, your monthly prospective data. You always want to make sure that your text messages have a clear purpose and a clear goal before you send them. The goal, our goal ultimately is not just to have students simply read the text messages. We want to inspire them into doing something. So here's the next one. The next advice, whenever possible, is we want to request the student take some kind of action. So in this sample earlier where I asked you to craft a text message, something that we would typically do in the college is say, hey, Yuli, it's Stacy from TMCC. Registration started on Thursday. What day of the week are you planning to register for classes? Right? So super direct. It is specifically asking them to answer a question that is related to the goal for us, which is get the students enrolled in classes. So what we have found is that when we ask a question like, what day of the week are you registering for classes? It's requiring that level of being specific prompts the students to give us a response. It does also mean that you have to have people readily available to answer questions. Because if the students are giving you information and there's no one there to reply to them, then you lose the connection, and that connection is really important. So we always also encourage us to keep messages short and sweet. So there's oftentimes a lot of information that we want to give them, but text messages are not a great place to have a ton of information. Your messages need to be short, sweet, and to the point. Sometimes whenever we have really important communications, so for example, we did a text message promoting the HERF money, COVID money, and the information is just too lengthy, too complicated to put it in a text message. So what we said was something along the lines of, here's what HERF is, check your email for more information. And then they can go to their email and see all the details for that particular opportunity. For someone that's brand new to texting, I always tell them, keep your messages under 160 characters. Now, the messaging platform that I use will actually take closer to 300 characters, but people have a really difficult time keeping their messages short. So if I ask for 160, I'll get something closer to 200 or 250 characters. I'm okay, I can work with that. Excuse me. So again, if you're very new to texting, give yourself a good training method is try to keep it under 160, and that'll train your brain to think short. It really does help. And again, this is not a sales pitch, but I do want to tell you that I work with Mongoose Research as my primary texting platform. This one I really like because it allows me to have multiple users at the same time. I can send thousands of text messages in one day, and all my team members, all the recruiters have their own texting account so that they can all help with responses. I also have a texting, since each recruiter has their own texting account, one of our weekly tasks is that we have reports of our prospective students and our new applicants, and we always send them a welcome message as soon as they apply to the college. Something really simple, you're saying, welcome, we're so glad that you're here. I'm your recruiter, here's my contact information, how can I help you? And at least we know that that student has someone that they can contact whenever they need assistance. So each recruiter has their own assigned cohorts of people that they work with, which again is tied to that personalization of services, because that person is typically the only one that's working with that student, from the time that they apply to the time that they enroll. And that works really well for us as well. Before I move on to my other recruitment ideas that I want to share with you, does anyone have any questions for me about texting? Stacy, I don't see anything in the chat, but if something comes up, please let me know. Okay, so I think I see the chat, so let me take a look. Perfect. Just let me know, please. I'll be happy to answer any questions. So I came up with a couple of strategies that I want to share with you for recruitment in general. And there were some parameters when I was thinking about what information I wanted to present with to you. One, I wanted ideas that were relatively cost effective. I know that we're all in a budget crisis, and funding is not readily available for many of us. So that's one. Two, I'm all about implementation. Great ideas are great ideas, but if I can't implement them, not sure how much I'll be able to use them. And then generally, I'm giving you at least one for recent high school graduates and one for more non-traditional adult learners. So if you would like any information about any of the strategies beyond what I can provide you in this presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at the end, and I'll be happy to talk to you. So the first strategy that I want to present to you,
Yuli,
yes.
Can I interrupt? I'm so sorry.
Absolutely.
Before you move on, there is one question in the chat about following up from the initial text. So since it was about the previous topic, I didn't want to
absolutely
get too far from it.
So for us, we start with our initial text, and then we communicate with them on a weekly basis, but through email. So the text message is just our way of getting them hooked. This is who I am. I'm your recruiter. You'll be getting information from me on a regular basis, but we communicate with our prospective students, or no, let me clarify. We communicate with our applicants on a weekly basis. So applicants, by that I mean the students who have submitted an application to the college. And then throughout, we send out text reminders for anytime that we have any important college deadlines. So for example, this week, registration opened on April 22nd. That's a text reminder right there. We use this a lot for like our Nevada Promise program to remind students about deadlines. We use it a lot around important registration timeframes. So that we continue to do that throughout the recruitment cycle. But again, I don't want to spam them with text messaging. So we use a combination, and I'll talk about some of those strategies with this next couple of slides. Okay. The first recommendation that I have for you here is if you don't already have a peer recruiter, peer outreach, peer ambassador program, if there's one takeaway that you'll have from this presentation is that students listen to other students. Your peer recruiters, peer ambassadors, peer advisors, peer, anything that you have are going to be your best allies when it comes to student outreach and recruitment. We, of course, rely heavily on student workers who have work study. And that really the backbone of recruitment at TMCC is our peer recruiter program. We have 14 of them. And there's absolutely no way that we could do the work that we do without them. They are our absolute best college ambassadors in every way, shape, or form. And it's interesting because sometimes I feel like, I'm a mom to all the students, because I can say, I can send a reminder 20 million times. And just like my 8-year-old son, I'll say it 10 times, he will not listen to me. But the minute that Imelda sends them that text message or she makes that phone call, it's like, oh, yeah, right, I'll take care of it right now. So it's really interesting just to see how that relationship can be really beneficial for us in outreach and recruitment. I, once again, will tell you that there's so much that they teach me in terms of how to get a hold or get in front of current high school students. So absolutely valuable is our peer recruiters. And as a matter of fact, they are my number one priority in my budget for recruitment. Peer recruiters are at the very top. I'm also calling them my TikTok champions, because y'all, if you asked me 3 months ago what TikTok was, I would not have been able to tell you. Just absolutely no way. But based on all my research in terms of how do I get in front of high school students in the time of COVID, TikTok just kept coming up over and over and over again. So I finally made the jump and we got ourselves a TikTok account, and it's my peer recruiters who are overseeing the efforts, creating videos. And we just started, but we had our first viral video this week with 61,000 views. So really excited about that and what that can do for us moving forward. My peer recruiters are also at the heart of our phone call efforts. And I also ask them to edit my emails. Because I definitely, want to make sure that the language that I'm using is going to be appropriate to a high school audience. So we use our peer recruiters for all of those projects. Something that we started this spring is we're calling it the TMCC tip of the week. But every week we send out an email. And yes, I know email is not the preferred communication for students, but I believe in consistency, and I believe in utilizing every platform that we have to try to communicate with students. And email is cheap, and it allows us to have some useful information and links and all the fun stuff. So the main takeaway here is consistency. Every week, each recruiter has a group of students that they will communicate with through this initiative. I'm the one who crafts the initial email, and then they can edit it, make it personal, add more information. I always include something related to faculty. So whether it's a program highlight, I've had the recruiters do Zoom interviews with different faculty members, short, sweet, just describing their programs. So I always include a link to one of those interviews. We want to make sure that we are consistently and on a very regular basis connecting with our applicants so that they recognize us, create some brand recognition, and hopefully they're getting important reminders that will help them through the recruitment cycle. And this one is not one that requires any additional funds. So it's a good one. We're trying it, and I'm really happy to hear that, when we talk to counselors and other partners that we work with, that, they tell us that, oh yes, students are getting your messages, and that's always exciting to me. So yay. Class of 2020. So my question to you all is, have you reconnected with class of 2020 prospective students? I think it comes to no shock to all of us that we saw our lowest number of class of 2020 students who went from, prospective to actually registered in fall of 2020. We had a decrease in new students. We felt that, and we felt it hard. So in trying to figure out what can we do to support enrollment for fall of 2021, we are not only looking at class of 2021 students, we are certainly looking at class of 2020 candidates. And specifically, I'm looking at the students who applied to the college but did not enroll. So so for me, that's a list of about 950 students that we are working with very closely. Phone calls, text messages, just folding them into all of the efforts that I'll talk about today, in hopes that we can get some of those students back this fall. And then in terms of adults and non-traditional students, we did something fairly similar. We looked back at the last 5 years of prospective data for adult and non-traditional students. And I define adult and non-traditional students probably a little broader. Anyone that's 20 years or older, I'm going to have them in this category. So we look back at or last 5 years of data, any student that had applied to the college but did not enroll. And I have a very, very, very large list of prospective data that we've been working with over the past few months. Now, that's one of the things that really hurt with recruitment this year is that we're not able to go out and get prospective data because we don't do any events, which is typically where we would collect a lot of it. So this year, this is what we were able to come up with. We've done a lot of data mining, gone back and looked for those student reports that we have then utilized for, again, texting, phone call, email, mailers, to try to get in front of them as best as we can in the time of COVID. Just some things that we found out is that we have consistent virtual workshops that are always offered the same day and time. Surprisingly, we tried a couple of times. We did evening times, weekend times, middle of the day, and what worked out best for us is lunchtime. So we think that that's because our non-traditional and adult students are working, or maybe they're busy parents around lunchtime. Maybe they can take a half an hour off and come and listen to us talk about our college. So that's what has worked well for us. Your students may be different. I think this is very much guided by location and student population. So I would suggest that you do something similar. We tried, again, evening, weekend, middle of the day worked best for our students. And then something else is that our adult students are interested in getting information about short certifications. That is primarily what they want to learn about. So our focus with that student population has been really promoting the short certifications that we offer at the college. Sorry, I don't know if that was a question. Okay. And then lastly, what I have in here is just broad question. How are you communicating with school district partners? Because again, that was another challenge for us. We were not able to host our regular breakfasts or counselor events or meetings. So this year, something really simple that we've done that we've had good feedback from is that I created what I call a TMCC monthly newsletter. And in this newsletter, once a month, I'll reach out to all my colleagues across student services, primarily at TMCC, admissions, advising, financial aid, and I'll ask them for a 100 words or less short blurb about what's going on in their departments. I'll include that in my newsletter and it blast it off to hundreds of people that we consider partners of education. And that is, again, a fairly efficient way to get a lot of information out to counselors. Because again, in conversations with them about what's the best way for me to communicate with you, something that they told me was that they really disliked when they would get messages from TMCC, 10 messages in 1 week, about reminders or program updates or new degrees. They get so many emails that at the end, it's like they felt that they were being spammed. So instead of doing that, now I just ask everyone to please give me their updates, put them together in a nice newsletter, send it off once a month. And that we've had really good feedback from our partners with that particular strategy. And then this is my last slide, I promise. But when it comes to, at the center of how do we make this work, and to me, it's all about the partnerships that we have with different programs across campus. Or we work very closely with dual credit. Dual credit is a fabulous pipeline to increase enrollment. It's not usually the traditional age group that we look for when it comes to college, traditional college recruitment. But at the end of the day, enrollment is enrollment. So partner up with your dual credit programs. That's a really fabulous opportunity. We work very closely with Nevada Promise. Absolutely, we want every applicant to apply to Nevada Promise. At the very least, it introduces them to the college, and then hopefully the recruiters can take it from there. I have a first name basis, and I have their cell phones on ready to go for my marketing, webmaster, information technology, and facilities contacts. We cannot be effective recruiters without them. So we work very, very closely. Everything that we do is in collaboration with one of those departments. and certainly do not have the capacity to do anything that we do without them. At the college, just to give you an idea, I manage the recruitment team, but all of my recruiters have other special programs that they're assigned. So I end up having a bunch of 50% positions for folks that can help with recruitment. So we certainly highly depend on all of these other programs to help us make everything work. And that's what we do in recruitment at TMCC. Can I answer any questions, any comments? I'll love to answer any questions that you have. Oh, look at that, Stacy. I did a good job. No one has questions for me. I want to thank you so much for your time. I am going to leave my phone number on the screen. So you are welcome to contact me with any questions. If you need any additional information, I'm always happy to be of assistance or provide support to any of my fellow recruiters. We're all in this together. It's been a tough year for all of us, but I'm hopeful that we will have better years ahead of us. Thank you everyone for your time. I stayed on time, Stacy. You should be proud of me.
You did very well.
Thank you. I can talk for hours. So, yay.
Super informative too.
Oh, thank you, Stacy.
I love the data of what the students want to see and what they're interested in. That's always super valuable. Yeah,
I borrowed that from one of our presentations that we've attended. Because again, we've been trying to do a lot of research on what works for recruitment. So I did give them credit. It's all in the presentation. I'm a good student too. So yay.
Great. It looks like there aren't any other questions. So I guess I will stop recording and thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss Stacy, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.